Welcome. I have a special guest joining us today, Kylie Wolfig, who's tuning in all the way from Thailand, and she's going to tell you the story of how she came to be in Thailand. It's an incredible transformation. Um, I'll get Kylie to introduce herself in a minute, but I've known Kylie since 2021, and then it was just a couple of years ago. I ended up reconnecting in with her. She's always been one of those wonderful people that I've worked with who keeps in touch with me. And when I touched base with her a couple of years ago, I was like, whoa, you look totally different. Tell me what has happened. And that's what we're here to share today. So, Kylie, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you?
Awesome. Hi, Jen. Thanks for having me. So, yep, we met in 2021. I clearly remember the day. I was standing in a shopping mall in Bali and I was trying to click on one of your links and it didn't work. And so I messaged you and said, hey, this doesn't work. But I didn't actually expect a response. And I got a response from you saying, thanks so much. And I had been watching you for a little while. I had a lot of issues, thyroid issues and health issues and excess weight. And I I messaged you so that because I'd been watching you, I was curious about the whole emotional thing because I had tried everything. I tried everything and nothing was working. And so then I just sort of went, well, what else is out there? And then in 2022, I finally, after watching you for a year or two, joined one of your courses, which I know you don't run anymore, but I learned the release process. And then things started to magically change for me, which, as happens in your world, whenever somebody hits your orbit, I tend to find things just change without thinking about it. Fast forward.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
can I just take a step
yep.
back? So, what is it that you have done or that you do for a living? Because I think you've had many identity shifts and explorations. So, tell us a little bit about your professional background.
Okay, so many. Because I'd been chasing my health issues and trying to sort them out, when I turned 40, I became a naturopath, clinical nutritionist, and herbalist to try and help myself. That was what the whole 4 years of study was about, was helping me. And I changed a lot of things, but the weight still eluded me. And so as time went by, I did other trainings and I was just always searching for the thing that was going to help me figure out my health. That was so, um,
What sort
you
of
know,
other trainings did you do?
I did kinesiology. I did Ho'oponopono prayer. I became certified in so many different things. I can't even tell you. Gerson therapy, everything was rooted in how can I help myself? And then I would sort of share that with clients and that sort of thing. So I worked a lot with, at the time, I don't now, but with thyroid people and things like that. So people like that. So anyone that had similar issues to me, I also found out along the way I had something called lipedema. So I just continued to, everything was based on how can I help myself? And so
Yeah.
there were so many different things that I've done and tried. Yep.
I love that. And so, can you just give us a little bit of a health background? I know you've touched on it, but just take us through a journey of your health and the things that you were affected by.
Okay. I thought I was perfectly normal up until I was 21, although I did have thick thighs and a very small waist, which will come into play later. Um, and I suddenly at 21, I moved across Australia. And within 3 months of moving across Australia I was living on Hamilton Island in the Great Barrier Reef. I met a guy there and I moved across Australia to Perth to be with him because I thought I was in love with him. I was not. And within 3 months, things started to change for me. And literally one day I went to, and I was a normal size at that point. I was, like always bigger on the bottom than the top. So, size 12, size 14 on the bottom, that sort of thing, 10, 12. And then one day, literally really quickly after moving across to Perth, I couldn't do up my jeans. Literally, I could do them up one day and then the next day, not even close. Like it was just, what's this? I just couldn't understand it. And I went on within that year to put on 50 kilos within the year. And it was heartbreaking because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand why I was eating the same. Everything was just same for me. And it got to a point where my boyfriend that I'd moved across to be with and was living with, he would kiss me passionately when I came back from the shops, from walking up to the shops. And I remember one day saying to him, what was that for? And he said, oh, I was just seeing if you ate chocolate while you're up there. So it was like
Mm.
starting to really like affect me. And what happened because of that is I did start to eat secretly, even just normal food, because I didn't want anyone to think that I was eating what I shouldn't be. So I'm sure that developed some kind of eating disorder because I didn't understand what was happening. It took about, I'm going to say 2 years to find a doctor who finally diagnosed me with thyroid disease, hypothyroidism. And that was, so that was 35 years ago. And back then, it's still not always a go-to, but it is a lot more thought of these days when you see a doctor. Whereas back then, it wasn't. And it took for me to find a doctor who actually had thyroid issues to pick up on, oh, you need a thyroid test, and found what was going on. I was given a tablet and told, you'll be right, you'll lose all the weight again. And off I went. And so the tablet became my new normal every day. And but the weight never left. And
Do you have
I
other
could,
symptoms as well as the weight gain?
oh, fatigue. Fatigue was a big thing. I was doing split shifts at a hospital at the time. I worked in the kitchen. And I used to ride my bike to the hospital, to the private hospital, and I would do this morning shift, the breakfast shift, ride home, and then I'd ride back for the evening shift. That was my normal thing. But during this time, I would ride home, lay on the couch, sleep until the alarm went off. So I was eating less and less. So it was just, I was just so tired. And I've never felt such fatigue as I felt at that time. And I was dragging myself through. And I did this for, yeah, a year or two
Mm.
before it was discovered what was wrong. So when I got the magic tablets, yeah, the fatigue improved and some, like I was able to function as, thyroid women can function under such circumstances. But yeah, the weight never left. So there were other typical thyroid symptoms. But as I said, funnily enough, my mum has had Hashimoto's since she was 11, but we never
Wow.
talked about it. We never discussed it, or I never understood. And she was had been on tablets since she was 11, and she wasn't big. So there was no kind of like, oh, hang on a sec,
Mm.
this is what's happening here. So there was
Yeah.
nothing like that for me to hook onto and think, oh, this could be my issue.
Right. Interesting. Okay, so continue. I just wanted to find out what your other sort of thyroid symptoms were because I know there's a
Yeah.
lot of people with thyroid issues that cross my path as well. And there's just such a variety of presentations, and sometimes medication works or it works to a certain point and
Yeah.
hormones are still out of balance.
I found out much later why the weight didn't leave, but that's further in the story.
Yeah, that's a good
And
story.
that's my theory with a lot of thyroid women is why the weight doesn't disappear after their levels, according to the bloods, have normalized. Um, and honestly, there may have been other symptoms like dry skin and things like that, and probably anxiety and depression. However, I probably thought that I had those things because I knew I wasn't in love with this guy and I was second guessing why I was there and why I'd moved across the country and all that sort of thing. So I probably thought I was feeling sad because I wasn't honoring my truth.
Problem.
I don't remember, but I do recall the fatigue and the weight gain were the main things for me that sent me looking for answers.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so I had my new normal, I had my tablet 4 years later. I left that man, and because I was like, okay, this is not working. He clearly was not happy to be with somebody who was not the size that I was when we met, which was sad. And I moved out into the middle of the country, into a strange place, met my now husband, and yeah, life kind of moved on. And I had a child. We got married. I had a child. I didn't understand that fertility was an issue with thyroid women. Again, there was just no information. And this was before the internet. So this was really not a big, you couldn't go Googling it.
Can I ask how
And
old you are now, just for context for
I
listeners?
am 55. I turned 55 a couple of months ago. So yeah, so we're talking this is a 35-year journey that
Mm,
has transpired.
mm,
And so I fell fairly quickly with our first child. Never was able to fall again after that. And
okay.
even after having him, there was a few thyroidy things that I was like, oh, I didn't know that, and they didn't know this. I had no milk. I didn't even have colostrum come in. I had to have a cesarean because he stopped growing, and they could not give me the medication to induce the labor because of the thyroid thing. I still don't remember what that was about, but whatever it was, there was no choice but to have a cesarean. And then yeah, where the milk didn't come in, and I just did not have milk after that. It finally came in, but there was literally hardly anything. And I pumped and I did all the things for like 3 weeks, and he just was not getting enough
Mm,
nourishment. So then had to swap to formula. But nobody knew. Nobody, no midwives at the time said to me, oh, no, no, lack of milk is actually a thyroid issue and that sort of thing. So I was too early for the knowledge that's out now to understand what was going on. So
mm,
yeah, so that was my new normal. I was never able to fall pregnant again after that.
mm-hmm.
Um, but I now look back and go, wow, I was really blessed to have one child.
Right.
So that was really interesting to look back on. And it wasn't until I continued to do all the diets, I continued to try and figure out why I couldn't lose weight. I continued to get bigger. And even so much, I didn't get bigger on the scales, but my limbs, my arms, I look back at photos and go, wow, they got so big. And at around 36, I took a year off. My husband said, take the year off and just exercise because I really was trying so hard to get rid of all this weight and couldn't figure it out. I exercised, we went bike riding, we did all the things. And he said, take a year off and that's your job, just you.
Mm,
And I
amazing.
did. Yeah, really amazing. However, at the end of the year, I'd gained 2 kilos.
Yeah,
Nothing else had
right.
changed.
Hmm.
So it was like, what's like it just heartbreaking, right? There was so many parts to my journey that I was like, wow, amazing.
Were you
And
ever going to see anyone else apart from a doctor at this point in time?
oh, so many. I can't even think, but all physical. I had tried all the diets under the sun. I'd tried all the protocols. I'd been to I can't even remember now because I feel like I've tried every single thing under the sun.
And what was
And
people's response when it didn't work? And how did you feel?
oh, it was always, oh, you must be cheating on your diet. It was that kind of, And I remember going to see a specialist with infertility and secondary infertility, and the endo, whoever it was, I can't remember who he was or how I got to see him, but anyway, he said to me, he goes, oh, no, no, you just need weight loss surgery. And I said, you don't understand. I hardly eat anything because that's a thyroid thing, right? Is a lack of appetite. That's really actually normal, which is so out of sync with how you look. And so I walked away from him and that probably fertility journey, just thinking, oh, I'm not meant to have another kid, although I continued to look up diets of falling pregnant and, all this sort of thing.
Mm. I'm
So
curious, can I ask
everybody,
you, like, how did you feel like trying all of these things, going and seeing these people and nothing working? Do you remember?
oh, completely like a failure.
Mm,
Yeah. Oh, always like every time something happened and that I'd be questioned about, and because you're constantly being questioned about, you're lying. You've got to be lying. You're eating in the dark. You're, getting up at midnight, and your feet, you're not
Sleep
actually,
eating.
yeah, you're not actually exercising, all the things, right? People
Mm.
just look at you differently. People, and so that for me, that was just, and I think because I'm such a positive person, I just pushed it all down. And it's just like, I can do this. I can do this. And I never, because I'm not that kind of person to fall into um, giving up. It has
Yeah.
to be something really, I don't know, for me to give up on something.
Yeah, I've got a couple of
Yeah.
questions on this.
Yeah.
So, because, well, a question or just a share is that I find that for a lot of people, whatever their treatment journey has been, there's generally quite a bit of processing to do on the experiences and interactions with
Mm.
the practitioners that you've seen and them saying things that aren't true or makes you feel unseen, unheard, misunderstood. So, yeah, it's really interesting. I think a lot of people don't think to actually process on that journey and just their condition or so on. So
And
that's
you're
one thing.
right. It hasn't occurred to me.
Oh, right. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. You can work on those people. That's the basic release
Yeah.
process. But
Yeah.
my question is, what is it in you that kept you searching?
I am a believer in you can have anything you want. Like I've always innately, I don't know whether it's my design, my astrology, I don't know what it is, because a lot of my family are quite not on the negative, but like not optimistic and like, no, 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 I can sort this out, and very happy to sort this out, right? And just understanding that this is just a lesson for me to learn. There's something about this that I don't know yet. So I can't explain why I'm that kind of person. I just
Yeah,
am. And
yeah.
I think that's what led me to looking for the emotional side of things, because I was like, oh, I tried everything else. And so
Mm.
then, the crystals came in and like, oh, what crystal is good for the thyroid? Oh,
Yeah,
okay, sodalite, right? So I started wearing sodalite, and
funny.
I just started reaching for anything because I don't know, something sort of happened where I just sort of went, oh, you know what? Um, I've looked at all the physical things. And by then, sorry, I've skipped a step. When I turned 40, my husband, bless him, said, nobody's as interested in your health as you are. Go study it. And at that point, because it was, Google was along by then, that was 2010. But I still had a book, massive bookcases, and half, I was a cake decorator at the time. So half was cake books and recipe books and that sort of thing. And I've been a short order cook and all those sorts of things. And half was nutrition books and me trying to figure me out. And what had happened was, because thyroid disease is an inflammatory disease, I was cake decorating is very repetitive. So people think, oh, that's all very glamorous and lovely, but you're doing a lot of rolling pin work and, using your wrists in the same manner. So a lot of, repetitive strain injury, that kind of thing. But at work one day, I was working for a cake shop. I started getting pins and needles and shooting pains up my left arm. And so, of course, I'm like, oh, I knew enough about nutrition and health to know that's not a good sign. I ended up in emergency one night and thinking I was having a heart attack. My husband was away, so I had to call a friend my son was, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8, grabbed him, took me to emergency because I rang the health line and they said, look, if you don't come up to the hospital, we're sending an ambulance to get you. So I was like, oh no, I like to be in control of these situations. And so I called my friend, she came and got Jacob, and I went to the hospital. They hooked me up to all the things. No, nothing wrong with me. Sent me on my way the next day. I still had the shooting pains. I still had the pins and needles. Didn't know what it was. Went to the chiropractor the next day. He goes, "Oh, you've pinched a nerve." Um, and so before long, I realized that cake decorating was just not going to work for me. And I had to leave that job. And I spent literally the next 6 months going to massage people and chiropractors and physios. And I did the gamut of every physical person possible to stop that sensation and to figure out my arm. And that was when my husband said to me, because I was now getting ready to, oh, okay, I'm ready to work again. I clearly can't go back to being a cake decorator. What do I do? And that's when he said, go study it. And as it happens, I had been driving past a cake shop every day on my way to work. And I'd been driving past a natural health institute every day on my way to the cake shop, sorry. And I suddenly went, oh, well, maybe that place. And I, got online. They happened to be having a open night that Friday night. My husband was flying in from work the Thursday or something, so I had somebody to look after our kid. Um, and so I went along, and I had at 40, I didn't finish high school. I left halfway through year 12. So I had to do a bridging course to get in and, prove that I could do it and all this sort of thing. And I did it. And I think about, and I encourage people to do this sort of thing because I remember this bridging course, I literally had to sit there and every sentence, literally, I had to look up a dictionary beside me because I did not understand each sentence because it was all this biology and pathophysiology and all this sort of stuff. But I got it and I got there and I just kept going. And I remember my first day of college, I was sitting at the back of the class of all these young 20 somethings that were all fit and healthy and were wearing the yoga clothes and the scarves and looked very hip. And I was like, this 40-year-old woman in the back of the class that, weighed 130 kilos, and I felt so out of place, but I was there to fix me.
Yeah,
So I just kept going. I just
I
kept
love
going.
that. You're a
Mm.
determined woman.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, and so
definitely.
you went on to be a naturopath for yourself and starting to see clients as well. And
Yeah.
so I don't know if there's a little bit more that you want to share before you entered my world, but yeah, what called you into working on your emotions? What spoke to you?
Well, after doing the 4 years of study, and I had done every protocol under the sun, and some really like full on ones like the Gerson therapy and things like that, a modified version of that for weight because that's more for cancer, that sort of thing. So I don't know, something because I was also adding in the crystals and all this sort of thing. I realized I was doing all the physical stuff. Something, I'm not sure what it was, made me go, you're not there's three parts, right? There's the mind, body, and soul. And so I just started looking at different things, and I think probably what led me down this rabbit hole is the whole what this means and what that means. And and I think I must have had Louise Hay's book on this means that metaphysically. And I think because I was searching on it for it online, that's when I started coming across people like you that were in that field. And yeah, I just started something that spoke to me about it. And I was just like, yeah, this makes sense. This is the one area I've never dealt with or I'd never worked on.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I just started watching, looking, living, just letting it evolve. And then, yeah, in 2021 was when I found you. And well, it might have been just a little bit before that. And I just started watching and that sort of thing. And then I messaged you because there was a link that was wrong. And I just kept watching. And then in 2022, I joined your practitioner training at the time to learn the release process.
Hey, I'm
And
just curious because I notice that people sit on the fence for a long time with my work. So,
mm,
do you think what's that about? Were you trying other things in the meantime, things that maybe felt a little bit easier? Did it feel confronting or challenging to work on your
absolutely,
emotions?
nobody wants to confront their emotions. Nobody. Like, if we can do anything we can to avoid, facing stress or emotions or traumas or things that have hurt our feelings, we will as humans. I don't know. I feel like I've watched this long enough to go, oh, yeah, yeah. It doesn't matter how evolved you are. Like, avoiding that sort of thing is like high on a list of people's priorities of just but if something grabs you about that world, you keep watching because you have to, I think, get to that point of no return of like, oh yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's like, oh, you've got to face this sort of thing. And I was certainly looking at it from easier perspectives like the Ho'oponopono prayer. I did that practitioner training because I was like, oh, this is easy. I can do that, and it wasn't confronting. You were just saying a mantra. So there was lots of things like that that I did to ease my way into it. But I
Yeah.
think there comes a point for some people where you just have to jump in. But I've noticed that for years, working with different clients and that sort of thing is if stress and emotions could be the first thing we work on, then so many other things could, be solved
Absolutely.
without,
And not just
yeah.
health, like every facet of life. And it's
Mm,
crazy. I say, well, most of the people I work with, they have tried everything. But then I think, oh my gosh, like I even add up. I'm looking around the room at some of the things that I've bought in my pain years and go, it easily already adds up to 10K.
oh,
And I don't use any
absolutely.
of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, just actually looking at all the things that you've tried, and they've obviously gotten you to a certain point, but it is interesting. I'd love to catch people earlier on the journey. And it's only because I've been in the online space for quite a few years now that I realize how long people have actually been watching. And I say that I don't get a lot of
Mm.
engagement, likes, or comments, and I totally understand why people don't want to comment on my stuff. But it's getting this feedback where I go, right, just keep on showing up because someone's watching. And then especially like we've got to get to the transformation side of things in a minute.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
especially when there's transformations like this, I'm really encouraged to, yeah, keep on sharing. So I just want to mention the practitioner training, it doesn't exist anymore. But one of my big things with practitioners coming on board was like, you're not doing this to get another certification. I don't even have a certification process for you, right? I can print you out and say that you did X amount of hours, but don't come and do this because of that. And I was just always such a big advocate for if you're a practitioner and you want to take people through this work, because that's what I was teaching at the time, it was my very first online course, is that you have to experience it. Otherwise, you're going to limit your clients as to how far you can take them. And now it's not that it was a terrible training or anything like that, but my work just evolved to go, you know what? If we can just have practitioners in general work on their emotions, they're going to find their own way of working with clients. They're going to bring their unique intuition. So not everyone is like a copy and paste version of me because some people don't like me, but they would prefer working with you. And so in that training, I had you share a history with me. I interpreted it for you. I actually facilitated a process, and you actually went and watched the recording just
I did.
recently. I can't even remember what we did. But can you talk a little bit about your experience of processing your emotions in that environment, but also having a facilitated process?
Yeah, I had to. I was looking through stuff. I was clearing emails and things like that to move here, and I found this email of the link to the video where you facilitated a process for me, and so I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I watched it,
Do you
and
remember what it felt like doing it at the time?
vaguely, it was a
Okay.
positive release,
Okay.
which was surprising. It was a positive release on my poppy, my great grandfather.
Mm.
But here was the thing, like I could see that I felt really safe and I felt like I could say things that I didn't normally say, or voice to the world, I guess. But it must have been around June, July of 2022 that it was taken. Now, to skip forward, I in October had gastric sleeve surgery. And it was something I never said I'd have, especially with that doctor that said, oh, just you need to go away and have weight loss surgery. And I was like, because I thought weight loss surgery was for people who couldn't control the amount of food they ate. So it was like, oh, I can see with this release that it was not even on my radar to do this? Because you had asked me at the beginning of it, what should we work on? And you gave me some suggestions based on my history. We could do this, we could do that. None of it. And I'm always working on my weight, always have been working on my weight. But there was never a moment anywhere in that conversation about me having weight loss surgery. So I was like, watching this back, I was like, oh, it wasn't even on my radar. And yet I had it like 4 months later. So
So
that was when I
interesting.
started. Yeah.
Yeah, you started connecting the dots of what happened and opportunities that opened up as you processed your emotions. And this is what I was not privy to because we only worked together for a handful of months and then we would keep in touch. And then it was only, I think, last year even, where I was like, whoa, Kylie, what has
What
happened? Because I
happened?
saw you had lost all of this weight. And sometimes I get this sense that people do my work and then they go, it didn't work. But then it's this realization of, again, it's not just focused on health, it's focusing on opening yourself to be able to receive things that maybe you were shut down from or receive these
Oh,
opportunities and meet people. So there's more to your story, which we're going to go into. And I did initially get that feeling of like, oh, did my emotional work not work? But you were like, no, it opened the doors for this. And this is where I say to people, look, anything is possible. And there is incredible health turnarounds and results, but I will never promise it because I
mm,
also see that other things open up in your life. So you were actually quite positive about the work that we had done together and then the journey you had gone on, which I'm so grateful for. So yeah, you keep going. So you had ended up having the gastric sleeve surgery and wasn't
yeah.
successful,
Look, first of all, I went in like other people probably go in to learning something like this, like the release process, thinking this was the magic bullet, right? Like, because that's what we think with a physical pill for every ill society that we have. So I went in thinking, oh yeah, this is I'm just gonna magically drop all this weight because I learned how to, process my emotions. What I didn't understand
which
was
sometimes does
that,
happen, by the way.
oh, I'm sure it does. I'm sure that, in fact, I know it does. But what I didn't understand was that sometimes it just clears the way for you to see opportunities, for you to meet the right people, for you to go on the journey that you're going to go on. And what had happened was in my business at the time, I had a client that came to me and said, I want you to coach me through weight loss surgery. And I was like, I'm not your person. I've never considered it. It's not something on my radar. And I'm a big, I'm like, I don't know. If I don't know anything about it, I'm not comfortable coaching you. You probably need to find
Mm,
somebody who knows a lot more about it. And she was insistent. She's like, no, 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 I want you to coach me through it because she was
mm.
a thyroid client. That's why, I was working with her. And and so I said, look, give me a couple of months to go away, research it, and I'll let you know. Because she was just so insistent.
Mm.
And so I went away and I was looking at all the studies. And during this time, which I skipped a step, I discovered I had this thing called lipedema. And this is not lymphedema, this is lipedema.
Yeah, well,
And
why don't you jump to the story of how you found this out? Because it's
yeah,
even like this, I say that emotional work also, it helps you when your practitioners just fall off the face of the earth or they're not able to serve you
yeah,
anymore. And it's trusting that the right next person
yeah.
actually presents to you. So yeah, share about how you found out about
Yeah,
lipedema.
I was working on with my thyroid. I used to go through stages of, oh, like I'm going to work on this now. Because if you work on the thing as a whole, sometimes when you've got so many, like it's so deep rooted that it's too overwhelming. So I would pick a symptom and go, right, I'm going to work on this. And so I was like, I'm going to work on my
Do you think that's a good approach?
when you've got a lot going on, yeah, working on just one thing, narrowing it down to one thing is like, because generally when you work on that one thing, whether it's physically or emotionally, it has a ripple effect on the other things anyway, right?
Yeah,
So this whole root cause thing is like, well, no, because if you work on this, it works on that anyway, right? So it
yeah.
knocks things out. And so that was the way I'd approach things at the time. I was like, no, 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 I'm going to work on my fluid retention. That was my choice of symptoms at the time. And so I rang up this manual lymphatic drainage lady that I'd been to in the past. No answer, phone disconnected, and she'd worked from home. So I was like, oh, damn, I'm going to have to find somebody new. And so I rang around. I found a oncology nurse who did manual lymphatic drainage massage from home, not far from me. And so I went to her and I sat down beside her and she goes, "Oh, pull up your skirt." And so I pulled up my dress and she looked at my leg. She goes, "Oh, you're a lippy lady." And I said, "I'm a what?" And, 4 years of college, and I didn't know this. And she was like, "No, no, no, you're a lippy lady. You've got lipedema." And there was no question, right? There was no, "Oh, no, you might have this. You should check it out." She's like, "Oh, no, 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 you do. There's very specific signs and symptoms and,
What
all the
are the
rest of
signs and
it."
the symptoms? Because you said
Okay,
you grew up and you always had like thicker legs. So
thicker legs.
yeah. Yeah, I
Yep.
mean you
Okay.
educated me about this as well.
Yeah, so lipedema is, and there's lots of stages and types, but essentially it's kind of leaky lymphatics in that, like, people understand leaky gut these days, but not, it's kind of a similar thing, leaky lymphatics. And what happens is fats seep through your interstitial tissue into your subcutaneous tissues where it can't be exercised or dieted away. It just kind of stays there. And inflammation, it is a second inflammatory disease. So I had thyroid disease, and lipedema is also an inflammatory disease. So it both causes inflammation and it's made worse by inflammation. Um, and so once it's there, there's no removing it unless you have it liposuctioned out.
Right.
So it's in about 11% of women, although that statistic's going up to about 16%. And it's got even though everybody has different stages and types, so some types might be, hips to knees, others is hips down to ankles. One very obvious sign is like rubber bands around the ankles. It's sort of like a cuffing. 30% of women with lipedema get it in the upper arms. And so you'll see there's sort of an overhang here,
Oh yeah.
where it's like a rubber band around your
So like an
elbow.
overhang. I mean, this is going to go on YouTube as well for anyone who wants to
Yeah.
watch it, but like an overhang over the elbows, overhang over the
Yeah.
knees and the ankles.
That's correct. Yeah. And there's usually fat pads, is what they're called, at the front of the knees and at the back of the knees, sort of an overhang. Um, and yeah, but it's also called painful fat syndrome. So anybody that has a blood pressure cuff on them and knows the
Sensitive.
excruciating pain that is in, like, or if somebody just pinches you or you knock yourself on a doorway or something like that, it's excruciating. It's not just, oh, rub your arm, that hurt. No, it's
Yeah.
like tears.
Interesting
And
because, the way I look at weight is that it's protecting emotions, and depending on the location of it, it can tell you what sort of emotions and experiences to process on. And then I talk about the energy or the sensitivity of the fat as well. Like, is it just numb or is it actually quite painful and sensitive? And I say that when it's sensitive, those emotions are ready to come to the surface
mm,
as well. But I totally get like, hey, this needs an actual physical intervention to be able to help it look different. Okay, so keep going.
yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
those are the
So,
hallmarks, and then what did you end up having done?
well, I didn't do anything at that point because I didn't, even after studying naturopathy and all the things, I didn't understand the full depth of it. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to understand what it actually meant for me. I did not connect the dots at that point that, oh, there's so many women with thyroid disease that put on weight, get given the tablet, and don't lose the weight. Yet there's a bunch of women that do. The
Yeah.
weight goes back to
Yeah,
normal.
so it's like, hey, you might have two coexisting or three or four coexisting morbidities, they call it,
Correct.
right?
Yeah. And so my theory now is that the women with thyroid disease that aren't able to lose that weight, because thyroid is a big connector, anything where your hormones are out of sync is a driver of lipedema. So if you
Mm,
have it, usually pregnancy, menopause, and puberty are the times that it gets worse,
mm,
because your hormones are out of sync. So if your thyroid's out of sync, and mine was out of sync for 2 years before it was picked up on, so that's why the weight that I put on rapidly became lipedema weight that I
yeah,
could not then lose.
yeah,
So yeah, I didn't understand. So her just saying that to me was still not enough for me to go, oh yeah, I get that. It wasn't until this prospective client came along and wanted me to coach her through weight loss surgery that I started looking into the studies of, she had Hashimoto's. So I was looking into the studies of Hashimoto's and the effects of gastric sleeve, started coming across studies that also involved lipedema. So then I started to go, oh, hang on a sec. And this would have been after we started, like I worked with you. So this, because there was a very short time period
Mm,
of when all this came about.
mm.
And I didn't understand that till I looked back. Oh, it was like 4 or 5 months. And so I went back to her and I said, look, not only am I willing to coach you through it, I'm actually going to do it myself.
Wow.
And because I walked out to my husband one day and said, I'm going to have weight loss surgery. And he goes, well, you may as well. You've got nothing to lose. He said, you don't eat anything anyway. We both
I
thought
love
that
how
was the,
encouraging he was around everything and the journey that it took
oh,
to get to that
I'm
point.
I'm very lucky. He's the kind of person that's like, you do you,
Yeah,
right? So he was just like, yeah, if you think that that's going to help you, and we both thought that the only downside was I wouldn't be able to eat much, and I already didn't eat much. So we, in our heads, in our very
yeah,
unknowledgeable heads, we're like, that's the only, downside. And
yeah. Well, interesting. The other thing is, I actually have a lesson on one of my courses about bariatric surgery, I think. I think I do. And I've had a couple of wonderful dietitians work with me as well. And it was through that original practitioner training. And one of them in particular, her business was focused on bariatric surgery. And so I loved that she was also doing the emotional work because we also hear of people going backwards with bariatric surgery.
yes.
And I also see that when people lose massive amounts of weight, whether it's due to intentional weight loss through diet and exercise or bariatric surgery, there is a massive identity shift that happens when you
Mm,
no longer look a certain way. And so that's why I think emotional work is such a foundation. I'm so grateful that you came across it and you're still on the journey of it
mm,
as you've gone through this. And I've seen incredible opportunities come your way at the same time. So I just wanted to
mm.
throw that one in there.
Yeah, no, and that's true. With the identity shift and that sort of thing, I went all in as I do, very positively. I did keep in the emotional work though. I was very insistent at this point that, and I knew because of all the research I'd done that identities change, relationships change, all that
Mm.
sort of thing. So I was like, I was doing it anyway, but I was very consistent with emotional processing and all of that sort of thing during the process. And so I lost 60 kilos. I went back to her and I finish that conversation? I went back to her
No.
and said, I'm going to do it too. And she said, oh, I've decided not to.
Oh, right. Interesting. Okay.
So she came to me only so that I could, that's the opportunity, that's the
Okay.
opening
Yeah.
up of like, oh no, I didn't release all these emotions to be able to lose the weight. I released them to be able to go, let me look into that. And
Yeah.
for this person to come my way and for me to go, all right, let me check it out.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
was that was what actually happened. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. It's amazing. I always feel that our clients also are a huge motivator to keep us accountable.
Absolutely. I think that's very true. So yeah, so I went ahead and as it happens, I was booked in we were booked to go to Singapore because the world was just opening up in October, and I found a surgeon down in Perth because we were living north of Western Australia at the time, and so I booked in with this guy, and this was September, and I came back from Singapore, was like, yep, I'm all in because I had my first experience on the plane where I had to ask for an extender belt,
Right.
and it was mortifying, and the stewardess was just so cold-hearted. Came
Oh.
walking down the aisle, holding up the extender belt, going, "Who asked for the extender belt?" And I was just like, yeah. And so, but that was,
Need to do a release on her, Kylie.
if I wasn't already in, I was in then. That was the moment of like, I'm not doing this again. I'm
Yeah.
not doing this again. I found that extender belt because I stole it. Because I was
So that
like,
you didn't have to
I'm
go
not
through that again.
absolutely. So I found it when we moved to Bangkok, and I was so happy to throw it away. It was like, oh wow, yeah,
Yes.
um,
I,
yeah. So Yeah.
Just, yeah, finish on the surgery because it's like, hang on, we've got to slip something else in here.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was really the surgeon I found, and I pick things intuitively, and the surgeon had the first name of my brother, one of my
Oh, right.
brothers, and had a Asian surname. And I think Asian people are mostly really smart. So, so I just went, you know what you're doing, and you've got my brother's name, like, and that was literally my
That how
thought
you choose
process.
your surgeon?
It was how I chose it, yeah. And it just felt right. I don't know, whatever reason, that was my thought process at the time. And funnily enough, he knew about lipedema because most people, most
Right.
doctors do not know it
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah.
And he said to me, he goes, I said, I think I've got this thing that I've been told I've got this thing called lipedema. And he goes, yeah, 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 I've read about that. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And
So
he
you're starting
said,
to meet people that can actually meet you where you're at and where
yes.
you need support.
I was blown away. And he said, yeah, he said, my understanding is there's a missing peptide in the gut. And that when you have weight loss surgery, you're cutting out ghrelin and leptin when you remove that part of the stomach, which
Right.
is interplaying with this missing peptide. Or I still don't understand it. And, the scientists still don't understand it. But he said that's why. So I just want to be clear, the weight loss surgery and what the weight I lost was not lipedema weight.
Yep.
It was any other weight that was not lipedema weight. You still
Yeah.
have to use liposuction to remove the lipedema fat
Gotcha.
that has
And
gone
that
through.
story's coming.
That story's coming. But the lipedema actually attracts. You know how people say, I just have to look at a cream bun and it goes straight to my hips. Lipedema fat has this thing or something about your body and the peptides, whatever it is, that attracts fat really easily. So it is literally a case of you just have to look at something and you add weight on. So the gastric sleeve, the weight loss surgery, what it did was it allowed me to lose the weight that was not lipedema
Got
fat.
you. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So in that year, I lost 60 kilos in that first year because I
Wow.
already ate really well because of my studies and all that sort of thing. Um, so I already had information in play, and it was just waiting for this little switch for this
Mm.
client to come to me and go,
Yes.
and for me to be brave enough to go, and that's releasing emotions. You're not brave enough. You don't find the courage unless you just go, what have I got to lose?
Yeah.
And
Or
step
otherwise
in,
you have the surgery and then you get complications or it doesn't work
and they
and you
and put
always come
weight
back to
back on
emotion.
because they
Yeah.
haven't dealt with the brain stuff. They haven't dealt
Yeah.
with the inner work. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um,
Now there's
mm.
another piece when we were working together, and I often would ask people, what's the life that you want to live? So what was your dream? What was your vision that was going on in amongst all of this, as well as trying to be a practitioner, learning to do this emotional work with your clients?
Okay. At the time, there was I'd gone down to Perth for a conference, and while I was gone, I sent a photo to my husband of my restaurant meal, which is always lovely, and he sent back a photo of his cheese toasties. Don't feel sorry for him; that's his favorite food, right? So there's a little, dance we a game we play. But in the background of the photo, he'd paused the TV, and on the YouTube video he was watching was how to live in Thailand for $2,000 a month, like a king or something to that effect. And I was like, "What are you watching there, babe?" And he was like, "Oh, we'll talk about it when you come back." And we had gone to Thailand for the first time in March of 2020. If anybody knows what happened in March of 2020, we literally flew back into Australia the day borders were shut. That was
Mm,
our planned holiday. And our time in Thailand for 10 days from the 1st to the 11th of March, amazing because there was nobody there. It was like we had private tours everywhere we went. It was lovely. And I don't know what had prompted him to look up this sort of thing or how he'd found it. And he said, "Oh, I can probably retire early if we move to Asia." And so me, I'm Miss Wanderlust and Miss Pisces, and I'm like, yeah, I'll live overseas for sure. And so we just started talking about it, and we just
yeah.
started,
And you declared it in our group. It's like, we want to retire in Thailand. I'm like, let's make this
yeah,
happen.
I know. So it was like, and honestly, it took 4 years to make it happen. But I just kept, I was like, it's kind of like my weight over the years. I was a dog with a bone. This can happen. There was, it's that optimism in me that's like, no, 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 there's no reason why this can't happen. We can do this.
Yeah.
And we just kept going. And then one day we just in September, in fact, it was June the 4th last year. My husband came home from work one day and went, I'm done. I'm done. Let's
Mm,
go. And because we're early 50s, or I'm 55, I say early. We were early when this time came around, and
mm,
he's a year younger. And so he just went, right. The only way we could retire at this point, or he could retire, I probably will always do something, was to live in a country where, it's cheap to live.
yeah.
And Bangkok was the choice from the beginning, because at this point, well, no, actually, yeah, no, it was the choice in the beginning because that's where we'd visited and we loved it. Funnily enough, the first 3 days we were here on that holiday in 2020, we hated it.
Mm,
And we were like, we better do every tour because we're probably not coming back. And by the time we did, and because normally we on holidays we'll have a day on, a day off, or a day of a tour and then a day to just chill. So we did back to back tours of everything because we were like, oh, we're not coming back here. By the end of that trip, we were like, this place is amazing, right?
oh,
So
stunning.
all these things. And so yeah, when we what happened then? Gosh, so when it came to choosing where to go, because there was lots of options, we go to Bali every year, and so there's lots of options for visas and all that sort of thing. But by this time, I'd lost so much weight, and we did flip around in the last few years of where we would go, where we could go. And I'd lost so much weight that I had a lot of loose skin. So I had my first surgery. For anyone on YouTube, you can see my arms. I had the first surgeries of my arms done in Australia, in Perth, and that was 25,000 Australian dollars to have that done. So I still had a lot more work that needed to be done. It didn't have to be done. Some of it did need to be done because it was causing, physical problems with rashes and overhanging skin and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, my arms, for example, they were a priority, and they were the first things I had done because at night, because I had lipedema arms, the loose skin and the excess skin would fold over on itself when I slept and make my arm go numb. So
Wow.
bring in that feeling of waking up in the middle of the night with a numb left arm, because that's the side I slept on.
Yeah.
And I was having repeat performances of, am I having a heart attack? Right.
Yeah, right.
So
And it's
my
also
arms were the
interesting
first.
because I have an episode called Emotional Botox, so it's about the face, right? Is I I love how you're talking about this journey because again, you've got the foundation of the emotional work. You're not just trying to make yourself look better through bariatric surgery on a superficial level. And I'm not saying that people are often doing this, but on this podcast, we're trying to talk about the emotions at play,
Mm,
and you've really represented them quite beautifully. Like, what is the experience of someone who has got massive weight gain and now the loose skin, and actually the practical problems? Like, it's not just out of vanity. Um, but yeah, I often say that, hey, you can do the work and you can feel differently internally, but sometimes your physical body is still this reminder. It still is a cause of some sort of pain. And, all these things that you pursued were not even on your radar, but these are the things that open up as you take the next step. The next step's like, oh, it's not just
yeah.
about weight loss. Now I've got to deal with the skin, the rashes, and the pain.
Mm.
Okay, so keep going. You had surgery on
Yeah,
your
so I
arm.
had their arms done in Perth, so, and they were, that was great. It
What's
was a
it
good
called?
experience.
Was it liposuction or?
Brachioplasty,
Okay.
because it was
So it's just for the loose skin.
it was no loose skin, but she also used liposuction to remove the lipedema
Gotcha.
nodules.
Yeah.
And this surgeon was amazing. She took photos because she knew how into it I was, and that I wasn't, afraid of seeing the gory stuff. So she took photos and videos in the surgery for me,
Wow.
so that and it was the first time I could literally see. I've seen it online, but lipedema fat is like hard balls. They're like
Right.
nodules, whereas normal fat is like fat, flat and fluffy.
Right.
And so she took photos of the inside where she'd lifted up the lymphatic net in under my arms, and I could see, you could scroll in and see the balls of lipedema
Wow.
fat.
Well,
So
actually,
it's,
so you do have a lipedema channel, don't you, on
I
YouTube?
do,
Because you
yeah, I
realized
do,
how much people weren't, how hard it was to find information and how
yeah,
um,
yeah.
little information there was on the internet and how little people knew. So you've really been documenting your journey and you've got all these photos pre-surgery, post-surgery, and so on.
Absolutely.
So we'll make sure, do you want to just give a shout out? Like, how do people find that? And
Oh,
we'll put
that's
it in
just
the
my
show notes.
name, Kylie Wolfig. So,
Okay,
yep,
cool.
yeah, yeah, and it documents everything with my lipidemia because I did. I realized that why, and because you blame yourself. You blame yourself that you're a failure and that there's something wrong with you. You don't have the willpower, all those things, right?
Mm.
Um,
And
so
this is
to
the thing
know
is
that
that
it's a
sometimes
physical
there is
issue.
exactly sometimes it is physical and it's like, hey, we don't just delve in emotional and think it's going to fix everything, but we find out what is the leftover that is
Yeah.
physical or otherwise it needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, and I needed to be ready.
Yeah.
I found out long before that that I had the lipedema, but I didn't understand what it meant and I wasn't ready to look into it.
Yeah.
So by doing the emotional work and I was just, there's that cascade, that domino effect of the people that showed up, and
Yeah.
yeah, and so all the way along, the whole journey so far has been like the right person at the next step, the right person
Love
at the
that.
next step. So
Yeah.
the reason we ended up deciding on Bangkok in the end, as a place to definitely, because it would have been easy to go to Bali. We knew Bali so well. We'd go across to
Mm.
Bali every year for 4 weeks holiday, so we knew it really, really well. Um, the Funnily enough, just when we were considering it, they had changed the retirement visa to 60, whereas it had been 55 and there was ways around that. But they altered it. So we're like, oh, so the only way around it was doing a few things that we weren't comfortable doing with our money in their bank account, and just a few things which ordinarily is not a problem because we had to do that to get to Thailand as well. But it was just a bit weird with Bali. And so we just sort of went, oh, let's turn back to Bangkok. And at that point, we're like, oh, I wanted more surgeries done to do my tummy. And I needed what's called a lower body lift. So right around my body, not just a tummy tuck.
Can you tell
Because
us a little bit because you taught me a bit about loose skin. So what was your relationship with the loose skin? What did you have to do with it?
I used to have to tuck it into my knickers every day. And
Mm.
like I would buy the tightest knickers that I could wear. I had to go searching for really specific knickers that held my tummy in. Because you end up with this big apron of fat, loose skin and fat, and it had lipedema fat in it as well, because that's a lot of your lymphatics is in your belly. So yeah, it was always trying to dress, even though I was now wearing size 8 jeans, that's Australian sizing. And I still felt uncomfortable and like I was still hiding something. Like I
Mm.
was still having to hide. I'd gone 30 something years of hiding my weight, and everything you try on, everything you look at in the shops is like it has to, will it hide me? Will it make me look smaller? And will it fit my arms and my hips as well as my
Mm.
smaller waist? Right. So
Yeah.
that's all you think of is,
Yeah.
if you don't understand what it's like to be overweight, if you've got somebody in your life that's overweight like that, it governs every decision you make from the minute you wake up in the morning to you go to somebody's house. Will that chair hold me? In a cafe, oh no, I can't sit in that chair with the arms
Mm.
on it because my hips will spill out over it just governs
Yeah.
everything.
There is just so many different experiences. And I always remember working with someone who's just like, calories in, calories out. I'm like, oh, now that was at the very beginning of my osteo journey. And now working with people who have had weight issues and a desire to lose weight, everyone's story is so unique. And their
Oh
experiences,
yeah.
like the lady holding up the extender belt in the aeroplane, or
Yeah.
just to hear that this is actually the internal dialogue and the thought process that
Mm.
goes on um for a
Yeah,
person.
overweight. Yeah, and I if you've not experienced that, then you would
Yeah.
never know. And I don't hold that against people. I have a friend whose husband had weight loss surgery many, like a decade or more before I did. And I remember having lunch with her, and she goes, "Oh, it's not good for him. You know, he shouldn't be having it. I don't agree with it. I don't want to support him." And I'm like, let me tell you what it's like to be overweight.
Yeah.
And by the end of that conversation, she went, "Oh, I had no idea."
Yeah, and this is what we talk about, right? Is people want to connect, they want to have a safe space to be able to share their emotions.
Mm,
And if we can provide that, if we can just listen a little bit more, then
yeah.
that can be so healing in the process. Can I
Oh,
ask you a
absolutely.
question
Yep.
about the weight and then the excess skin? It's like, how did you feel about your body when you looked in the mirror, or would you look in the mirror?
When I was overweight,
Both, when you were overweight and also when you
yes.
lost it and you had the loose skin.
It's funny. I still every now and again now, and it's what, so that was 2022. So for this year, this October, it's 4 years since I had the surgery. I still every now and again catch myself not looking in the mirror, but at the shops, or I still have the thought processes that I'm 130 kilos. So
Yeah,
there's
right.
moments I would always, I have a little bit of a different attitude towards things. I'm always scanning for data. Like I've
Mm,
always done that. So even at overweight, I would be scanning for what's changed. If I looked in the mirror, I'd be scanning for what's changed. But I think that's because I was always in hope of, have I done it this time? Have I lost the weight this time? Have I? So there's always this hopefulness.
yeah.
But at the flip side of that, there's the hopelessness that, nah, that didn't work. Nah, that didn't work. What's wrong with me? You know?
Mm,
And when I'd lost the weight, and I knew I wasn't an idiot. I was very aware that as a 50 something year old having this surgery, my skin was not going to bounce back like a 20-year old. I knew that. But at the same time, it was so hard to walk. I had a double knee replacement in 2019,
right.
um, because I didn't know the effect of lipedema on joints as well, hypermobile joints and that sort of thing. So that was something that happened before I understood lipedema. Um, so I knew something had to give if I wanted to have a happy life. And I knew that there was, as years went by, I also knew that if I'm going to live in Thailand, the land of the stairs, like, let me tell you, they're everywhere. um, how am I going to do that when,
Yeah.
there was just those moments of, I need to change something, but
I
I
love that. So
just,
that future version of yourself started to change the decisions you needed to make for yourself in the
yeah.
present.
So even when I saw the loose skin, the fact that I could now suddenly walk for hours and not hurt, because lipedema, it does hurt. It's like walking through wet cement.
Mm,
And I hated exercise. I just thought I was that person that hated exercise because I was overweight.
mm,
No, it wasn't. It just hurt, right?
yeah.
And that's a very physical thing that women with lipedema experience, is that it's like it hurts
Yeah.
to exercise.
Yes.
So even though I had the loose skin, I was still thankful that I could now walk and function and feel happier about my footprint in the world, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
was willing to, even if I couldn't have had the skin removal surgery, I was still like, no, I was still in a better place. But there's still that part of you that's like, wow, you've done all this work,
Mm.
and yet you're still left with these things that you're just like, oh, come on, that's not
Yeah.
fair.
And again, you found this determination, and Thailand is known for its medical tourism. So
Mm.
you went on to have more surgery in Thailand recently.
I did. So we ended up moving in September last year, in September 2025. And I wasn't planning on having it so quickly. We had saved money so that I could have a certain surgeries that I had earmarked. We saved that before we left Australia. And I wasn't expecting to have it like as soon as I got here, but one thing led to another, and suddenly I was there in their office, and bang, I was booked in for 4th of December, and yeah, I had a lower body lift, and I had the neck mid face lift as well,
Can I ask
and
about the price comparison? Because did you
oh
look at
yeah.
this in
Oh
Australia
yeah.
versus
Yeah, yeah,
Thailand?
yeah. Absolutely. So to have my lower body lift with the surgeon that did my arms, it would have been around
In
$45,000
Australia.
in Australia. And that's just the basics. It was $30,000 for the actual surgeon for the lower body lift. It was 14,000 for the anesthetic,
Yeah.
for the anaesthetist. And so that's not including, it would have been, $5,000 to fly to Perth, have stay in a hotel, that kind of thing. So that wasn't
Yeah.
including all the peripheries. It would have just been 45,000 just for that.
Mm.
So here for and admittedly we waited till we got here, so there wasn't the tourism side of flying, and we chose that. We chose to wait till I got here to do that, so that there wasn't flights, hotels, that kind of thing involved. So to have the lower body lift, and it also includes what's called a mom's lift, which is your pubic area
Oh
gets
yeah.
lifted as well, because that sags as well.
Right.
Yeah, things you don't know. And and then the face, the mid face, neck, is that everything? That I had done was, I think, in total 14,000.
What?
14,000?
So a third of the price and you
No, no,
got
no.
all this
Sorry,
extra.
20,000. Sorry, it was
Still, okay,
20,000
half,
roughly.
like more than
Yeah,
half.
yeah, yeah. That's right. Exactly.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So,
And I remember because this is when I was like, oh my gosh, Kylie, like we were catching up and um you were asking me more about the thyroid and the emotions and to share a bit around that. And then you were telling me about the lipedema. So last year I was like, I've got to get you on the podcast. And,
yeah.
this is a massive story. But what I love about it is the deeper transformation, the moves, the patience, the like physical shifts, the health shifts, the decisions to embrace conventional medicine and surgery as well.
Mm.
And I think it was as you were going in for this surgery in December, and I think you must have had a little bit more late December time. I was like, Kylie, I've been looking for someone to work with me to be able to support me. And something that I really look for is the personal journey that people have been on. And yeah, I'd been watching you for the last few years. And again, you're one of the few people that have kept in touch with me, just keeping me posted and updated. It's like, right. It's almost like I was waiting for you to move to Thailand because I knew that was the dream back in 2021 or
Mm.
2022 when we worked together. It's like, wow, she's done it like all these years later. So you moved to Thailand, you lost a massive amount of weight, um, you discovered this lipedema, had liposuction, and I was like, do you want to come work for me? And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm navigating all of this surgery at the same time. So again, that's where I see, another opportunity of expansion, but also maintaining and walking with the challenge of I've got to get through surgery. And your recoveries were actually really remarkable and quite quick. So
Yeah.
you had the lower body lift and you were showing, I was like, Kylie, can I have a look? And you showed me it's like cut right around your body and
Yeah.
how it's all
Yeah.
stitched together. It's pretty
Yeah.
fascinating. And so I love that you're so transparent about it. And then you had the face side of things. And we talked about this
Mm.
because you're like, look, I didn't, because there's the vanity piece.
The
Yeah,
face
you
was
talk about
definitely
it.
vanity. The face was my reward, I guess. And I could have not done the face, and the neck, but my neck was really, really saggy. And I felt different inside to what I looked on the outside. And I never thought in a million years I'd be that woman that would want a facelift. And I just went, you know what? Freaking hell, I deserve to look like how I feel. I had the money to do it. I had saved. It was still a choice. I didn't have to. And I just went, no, bugger it. I'm doing it. And so yeah, it was just I just did it. And I'm so glad I did, and
Yeah.
my face, I'm so happy to say that it doesn't, like, I've still got wrinkles on my forehead and things like that. So I don't look like a 20-year-old in a
Yeah.
55-year-old's body.
Yeah.
Anybody that's met me probably and doesn't know my story wouldn't think that anything of that I'd had face work done.
Well, even me, having known you for those handful of years, I don't look at you and go, well, I noticed that you had lost a lot of weight, but to be honest, I don't, it's not noticeable to me that you've had surgery, not because it doesn't look like it's changed, but I do think it really is a reflection of who you are. So this is where
Mm,
I am supportive of people, if they've been through a massive amount of grief and loss or divorce and they've done the inner work, but they've got all of the stress
mm.
lines on their face to like refresh it. But again, what's the place that it's coming from? Because we also see people overdo the aesthetic cosmetic surgery side of things, and it's like, oh
Oh
my
yeah.
gosh, you look way worse.
Oh,
They can't see it. So for me, I look at you and I go, it's just been such a quick shift for me. It doesn't look like you've had work done.
yeah. No, no,
Mm.
no. And honestly, the pain of anyone watching that's considering this, let me tell you, the lower body lift and the arms were a piece of pie. The facelift, the most painful thing, and I've had a double knee replacement. One of the most painful things I've ever done was the facelift. So why people go back and back and back is beyond me because that hurts so much. But I'm still in the group of the company that I went through
Mm.
because I'm having more surgeries next month. I'm having
Yeah.
a breast lift and a side lift, which is under the underarms,
Yeah.
next month. And so it's funny how you read everybody's, oh, I'm coming next month. I'm arriving. What should I bring with me? What should I pack? What are the essentials? And everybody is so focused on the physical. And,
Right.
and typical me, I go in and I go, bring a really positive attitude. Make sure you do the inner work. Like,
Yeah.
work with somebody on your emotions because this is a big
I love
change.
that.
And I'm the only person that does it. But I'm like,
Yeah.
come on. And just people don't get it. And
Yeah, they still will throw tens of thousands of dollars, massive recovery.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I always think before surgery, the more work you can do, the better. So you don't get complications after or
Oh,
infections and, have to deal with
absolutely.
it whilst you're recovering. I love
And
that. And I mean,
just so people know, with my surgery
yeah,
next month, I'm
yep,
already doing the emotional work
to
for
prep
this
you
next
for it.
surgery. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I don't
Yeah,
just prep physically, I prep emotionally so
yeah,
that in my head and in my soul,
yeah,
this is going to be positive. This is going to be an easy surgery. This is going to
yeah.
be no
You can be what you
problems.
intend. It's so
Yeah.
funny because I
Yeah.
know that everyone's going to be like, "So what emotional work you're doing?" And it's like it doesn't work like that, guys. It's so individual based on the person's unique experience and where they're at
Yeah.
and so on. Okay, so brilliant. And also you're actually quite well researched. So you're looking at doing your legs, but in Turkey.
Yes. So I like to people don't understand that Thailand are really high up there. The hospitals here, while it might be medical tourism, the hospital's the next level. The
Mm.
hospital I was operated on, they have a baby grand piano in the foyer and a cappuccino machine that is free. And the water is not just a never fail water bottle or whatever. It's a fancy thing with strawberries and cucumber in it for you to pour yourself. Like it's next level stuff. I
Mm.
never came across a bad nurse, and nurses are run off their feet, and obviously emotions run high in some situations. So generally, when you're in hospital, there's always kind of one, no shade on our nurses because they're under the pump, and that's why this
Yeah.
happens. But I didn't have a single bad experience with a single bad nurse. So like there was just the medical tourism is next level.
Mm.
However, the lower body lift, the boob lift, that sort of thing, this is their bread and butter. I went with a surgeon. This is his bread and butter. He does it day in, day out. So I'm also very practical. And when it comes to lipedema, and I've got lipedema from the hips down to the ankles, so it's going to have to be a full leg incision. it's going to have to be removal via liposuction of the lipedema fat and then a skin removal surgery at the same time.
Mm,
That is not their bread and butter here.
mm,
Turkey, Germany, Spain, these are the places where they're very familiar with lipedema surgery. There's surgeons
mm,
that this is what they do day in, day out.
mm.
Germany is the top level, the top tier, but I'm looking at probably 45,000 Australian dollars to have both full legs done in Germany,
Right.
but around 15 to 20,000 in Turkey, because Turkey's
Wow.
like the medical tourism version for lipedema to
Yeah.
Germany.
Gotcha.
And I similar 10 to 15 potentially. I haven't checked, I've only just found out about Spain, so I'm just starting to look into that. And I didn't actually save the money for legs. I I didn't think that that was something I would ever do because it was such a big surgery and because it had to be so specialized. I thought it was out of my realm of possibility.
Mm,
So that is still on the table, but down the track.
gotcha.
So, but if I do, and it's possible. It's always, I'm that person again. Like, why not? Why not me,
Mm,
right? That I potentially will be looking at, unless something magical happens money wise, then I would absolutely go to Germany and find the best lipedema doctor. But with lipedema surgery on the legs or any leg surgery, so even if it was just a leg lift, they ask you to stay for 4 weeks in Thailand. So if you
right.
have a leg lift, yeah, because it's a big surgery.
Wow.
So yeah, you can't go flying for 4 weeks after that. So but it's a lot more nuanced. It's a lot more specific. And I just thought, if I'm going to do the legs,
Yeah.
I'll be going to somebody who does this day in, day out. Because I
Yeah.
just think that makes sense, right?
Yep.
So I will still do all the other things I would normally do, physically, mentally, and emotionally. But, from a physical perspective, I will pick the person who does this every single day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Amazing, Kylie. This is so incredible. So you feel like you shared a little bit more about that release that you watched several years later. Um, there was stuff I think in there that you alluded that you just it came through at that time, but you just weren't ready to hear it, and it's still so relevant now. I can't even remember what it was.
Oh,
You
now I
don't have to
can't
talk
remember what it
about
was.
you don't have to talk about it specifically, but what I just found fascinating was I say, look, the emotions always speak the truth, your body always speaks the truth, and sometimes your mind has to catch up. So it was interesting to hear that so many years later that release still had relevance and perhaps how
Yeah.
you had
And you know what
actually
it was
integrated it.
about? It just occurred to me. I love real time realizations. Uh, it was a positive release on my great grandfather who actually saved me from a dog attack.
Mm,
And I was about 6 or 7, and we lived. This was in the Sunshine Coast of Queensland, and all the dogs in the neighborhood, because we backed onto cane sugar fields, and there was a toad or a tick or something that was actually sending all the dogs rabid. But this was the first one, and we were there visiting a house that mum and dad were building and showing my nan and pop this house. And I was walking along in front of my poppy, and this red setter, and red setters are not vicious dogs,
yeah,
right? Came for me.
right.
And Poppy is a really big man. He was a big man. He passed many years ago when I was about 12. And he literally picked me up. I feel like he picked me up by the shirt, the back of the shirt, and lifted me out of the way of this dog and kicked this dog um, out of my path. And I think back to that and why I chose that release when you facilitated it for me. It was about protection. It was
Mm,
about being saved.
mm,
And there's something that spoke to me about that like you're always being looked after. Whether
mm.
you realize you are or not, you're always being looked after by somebody, something, if you let yourself be.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So beautiful.
Mm.
I do feel like it's a little bit like the psychics the astrologers, where sometimes you can't make sense of it until afterwards and you see how that message has been supportive for you. And of course, you
Oh,
keep on opening up more messages, more realizations with more processing as well.
oh, absolutely.
I want to ask you, well, you're someone who has dived into the work, and when I did the practitioner training, which who knows if it will ever come back, at this stage, I don't see the space for it, but you will know if it comes back. And if it does, I say you've got to just do the work on yourself.
Mm,
And that is so that you can open the world of possibility for the people that you work on. So you're someone who's chosen to do that work on yourself. We've heard all of your massive transformation, not just with health, but with relationships, with location, and actually picking up and moving. So career changes as well. We've heard a little bit of the money energetics here too, which is wonderful. What would you say to someone who emotional work is on their radar, or maybe this is the first time they're hearing about it? What would you say to encourage them based on your experience?
it's kind of like having a baby. There's no good time. It's never going to feel more comfortable. And don't let yourself get to the point that you just feel so down, depressed, or in pain that it's kind of you're left with no choice. Like, don't get to that point because it's still not going to be any more comfortable. Um, Although the release process, like, the positive release, to be able to, thank my poppy for something that he did when he was alive and that sort of thing,
Mm,
it doesn't have to be deep and horrible and that sort of thing. But I think the point is the thought it's that stepping, it's taking that step is never going to be more comfortable than
yeah.
it is now. It's just I sat and watched and watched and watched, yet it still was just as hard, no matter how long I watched your information for, no matter how long I
Yeah.
followed you for.
Yeah.
It just, and then like most people, I just got to a point where I was like, oh, I've just got to try. I've just got to try. But in retrospect, it was still no more uncomfortable than it would have been had I jumped in after Bali when I, first
Mm,
messaged you. So
yeah.
I would say jump in, and maybe do it when you've already got more emotional capacity to delve into the things that actually are really problematic for you, rather than.
Absolutely. Because,
Mm,
yeah, it's a bit sad for me. Sometimes people reach out and they're like, I'm about to have surgery. Can you help me? I'm like, I can't see you this immediately. And then it comes from a place of desperation. It comes from a very hyper-focused place
yeah, yeah,
versus we just need to look at everything and just need to start processing sometimes. And sometimes there are releases that are going to be more of a priority, but that's also very individual to meet the person where they're at, what they have capacity for. So you, at the moment, I've had various coaches support me on release, which is my signature program where I teach people the release process and we work on whatever they have capacity for, right? Whatever is the priority. You've now been in that world. Uh, how would you describe it? Because the more I actually do it, I've been running it now for 6 years. The more I know about it, the harder it is to get to describe. And, I've been getting more people who have done my work on the podcast because you hear these long journeys that actually is quite condensed over so many years, especially
mm.
for you. They also say I can't describe it. And I'm just trying to distill for people like who is it? Who is it that gets benefits out of this? So what would your take be as someone who is in behind the scenes supporting people in release and what you've seen happen?
It was really, really interesting to have this last live round and be behind the scenes and watch people um, share their truths, share their innermost fears and traumas and experiences that are just heartbreaking, but they're there because they're ready to let go of it. So, when I went through it for myself, you're actually in your own bubble. And I think a
Mm,
lot of people don't want to join a group program because they think other people are going to be reading their stuff.
yeah.
And so that holds them back. But I can say, as somebody who did it and then this, like, as a support coach, nobody's reading your stuff.
Yeah.
Like, because it's all you can do just to get through yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's you are just trying your hardest to be as honest and as open as you can about your own stuff, which generally you've never been honest and open with anybody about.
Mm.
So it's this space of safety. And I just, watching the people in this last round in February was like, wow, I just so much courage and so much willingness to have a better life, no matter what.
Yeah.
And that understanding that nobody, I have this saying, nobody's what's this saying? Nothing is meant for you. Nobody's as good as, oh, I can't even think of it now that I'm on the
Sorry, I
spot.
sometimes
That's
start,
all
I'm
right.
like, oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher this one.
I know, yet it's like,
Nothing
oh,
that's meant for you will pass you.
yeah, that's true. But I also have on my private Facebook page, nobody is coming to save you. Get
Oh,
up.
yeah, true. Yeah. You got to participate in your own rescue.
Yeah, and I think watching from behind me, I when I did it for myself, um, I was very much in that space of nobody's coming, no doctor, no naturopath, and I'm a naturopath, but let me tell you, unless you're going to give me 6 weeks of your undivided time, which will cost you a fortune,
Mm.
I'm not, going home at night and thinking about you and your problems, nor is your
Mm.
doctor, nor is
Mm.
any other physical service or therapist. You
Yeah.
are the only one that goes to bed in your body and knows what your mind is thinking and knows the heartaches and the traumas that you're reliving day in, day out.
Mm.
So watching it from a support coach perspective and seeing these people let go of such big things and seeing the
Yeah.
transformation over such like only 6 weeks is insanely it's an insane privilege, let me tell you, to
Mm.
have these people let you in on their everything that's made them up to be who they are, and that's what it is. Every
Yeah.
bad thing and every good thing makes you who you are and makes you where you're at. But to be willing to stand up and type or speak into a group where you think they're all looking at you and reading your stuff, which they're not. I like
Mm.
that's very clear, which at the time I thought people were looking at my stuff. No, they're
Yeah.
not, because they're dealing with
Yeah.
their own stuff, right?
It's so funny because, I say to people, you can come into it and so many people are worried, like, what's the group size? I'm like, don't worry about the group size. You're going to get support from me. You're going to get support if
Yeah,
I have a support coach on board that time. Like, we make all these excuses as to why we don't do the work. And so that's one
yeah,
of the things where I never reveal how big the group size is because it's always been varied. And actually, it's up to me as to what I feel I can um, have a capacity for to give support. And yeah, people just they don't believe me that like no one actually cares about your stuff except for you. And there
yeah,
comes a point where at the same time I will link in people because they're on a similar journey, but because I know everyone, the more you interact, the more I get to see like everyone in this group has crossed paths for a reason. And that's why we do the emotional work so that we realize who is around us, who is supporting us, who is sending us messages as well. But yeah, you're right. You can totally come in on your own mission and just pretend it's just
mm,
you and us. And you don't have to worry about anyone else. But that's the
no,
thing is like we eventually want you to be able to expand to take in everyone else around you as well.
yeah. Well, I
Mm,
think we all fear judgment, right? Because we're so
mm,
so judgmental of ourselves as human beings. We judge ourselves so deeply
mm.
that we think other people are judging us. And things are going wrong, or when you don't know what's happening with somebody else and you think it's you, we all do it, right? It's never, I always say it's never about you. It's never
Yeah,
about us. It's always whatever they're going through at the time. And I think that we bring that to this emotional work is that we worry about everybody else instead of going, no, 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 it's they're about them and I'm about
yeah,
me. And I
yeah,
think that's why people watch for so long before diving in,
yeah,
is because of the fear of that judgment, of that fear of what if there's somebody in that group that knows me and that,
Yeah.
and I can't talk about it. But it's also just the talking about it in front of other people. Like
Yeah.
it's actually voicing what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's what scares us more than anything is, and
Yeah.
what takes so long to dive into that. But it doesn't get any less scary no
Yeah.
matter how long you wait. It's like,
Yeah, exactly. You just got to
yeah,
decide. And I'll just be clear, it's like people, you're not releasing in front of a group of people or
no,
anything like that.
no,
But there is ways to get feedback on your releases, and
yeah.
I'll put the notes, I'll put it in the show notes, the link to release. But yeah, the well, there's something that you touched on that I wanted to share about is, yeah, the concern, or one of them was the concern of other people judging you. Oh, it's like, what if I know someone in that group? And
Mm,
it was actually
mm.
probably my first or second round of release where there was actually a lot of people from my local town.
Wow.
And I said, you know what? Don't worry, because I trust and I know, like the way that I put my work out there is that this goes to show you that there's people in your town that speak a common language, but are just not speaking about it openly. And you get
Yeah.
to it in here. And some of them have built really beautiful friendships because they are able to have those deeper, more vulnerable conversations. And I guess know that you're the kind of person that's willing to take responsibility. That, hey,
Mm.
you've got this issue, but now you know what to do about it. Or maybe that friend will now say, you need to process on that.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
it's so
absolutely.
incredibly simple, but yeah, and I just say magic happens, and some of the stories are very difficult to relay to show that, and I guess there's that element of curiosity of I just want you to step into the group and find out what magic is possible
Mm.
for you as well.
And can I also say, as a practitioner that has done a million different modalities and courses and certifications and all the things, right? To have a process that you can do in less than 60 seconds, that's why you come into the group and get the feedback, right? Is so that you can learn how to do it in 60 seconds anywhere. I've learned a lot of modalities that require me to have sheets and my iPad and things like that. And they're valuable. Don't get me wrong. They're all
Mm.
valuable in their own way. But to have a process that you can do anywhere, anytime, once you know how to do it, that's amazing, right? That's
Yeah.
so valuable to have because we can't pick and choose when we have our traumatic moments. So we can't pick and choose that. I know this isn't a good time because I can't go and do XYZ to clear it, right?
Yeah.
Life happens. Life happens. So I think it's such a valuable thing to learn how to do for
Mm.
for the respect of being able to do it anywhere, anytime.
Yeah,
That's just my take as a
absolutely.
practitioner, anyway.
Absolutely. And yeah, thank you for recognizing that. And that's where, with my work, I say, no, I'm not going to do a certification just because it's going to appease people and get more people in the door. I'm like, I just want people to do the real work.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's not about your qualifications or your credentials. I know some people don't agree with me on that. But yeah, your story is pretty amazing, and I'm sure it's going to continue to unfold for sure. But I love it. I love it's taken what, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 years for me to get you on to share your story.
Well, it's good, and it's probably been a long chat. That's why. So, but yeah, it's really nice to actually reflect back of what a journey it has been and how it just suddenly started to happen. And I didn't even realize that it actually just came about, started to fall into place 4 months after learning this. So that
Mm,
was such a fascinating thing to look back on and go, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. Right. So, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, it's such an honor and privilege to work with you and have someone like you who has walked that path because, yeah, there's a level of experience that you can teach from. There's the challenge and there's the expansion that you've held. And so that's why I've asked you to come on board to, yeah, support me in your own unique way.
Thank you. I'm
Cool.
very privileged myself to be working in your orbit because things happen whenever you people get into your orbit, and there are other things that have just started suddenly happening for me this time round as well. So, yeah, there's something very magical and manifestational about working with you and on a different process, not a different process, but on a different level.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And we will pop in the show notes links of how to find all the fascinating stuff that you've been sharing in your world as well, and how people could get in touch with you if they wanted. Amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Kylie.
Thanks, Jen.